I'm Kevin Power, the producer and host of the SaskScapes podcast, and you're listening to a few highlights from the special SaskScapes Present series entitled German Culture Alive, sponsored by the Saskatchewan German Council. These are short clips from my conversations with past guests. Uli Hecker, a retired German language teacher, Amy Jo Amen, a freelance writer and Saskatchewan food historian, Waltraud Steven, a retired university instructor and professional puppeteer, Alvin Knoll, Regina German Club board member, and Mark Turner, CEO of the Saskatoon Symphony Orchestra. But first, a word from the Saskatchewan German Council's executive director.
Hallo, mein Name ist Gabriele Weidelich-Harrison, Geschäftsführerin des Saskatchewan German Council, SGC. Unser Ziel ist es, die deutsche Kultur in Saskatchewan zu fördern und zu feiern. Nicht nur für unsere eigene Gemeinde, sondern für alle Menschen in Saskatchewan und darüber hinaus. Dies erreichen wir unter anderem durch Storytelling, dem Erzählen von Geschichten durch die Menschen, die unsere deutsche Kultur hier am Leben erhalten. Und Podcasts bieten eine beliebte Möglichkeit, diese persönlichen Geschichten zu teilen. Um die Sonderausgabe German Culture Alive zu erstellen, arbeiten wir mit Kevin Power, dem Produzenten und Moderator von SaskScapes Podcast. Im Folgenden findet ihr Highlights aus einigen bereits aufgezeichneten Episoden. Ich hoffe, dass dies euer Interesse für die gesamte Serie wecken wird. Ihr könnt German Culture Alive von der SGC-Webseite streamen oder SaskScapes kostenlos über eure Lieblings-Podcast-App herunterladen. Viel Spaß beim Zuhören!
And so the story behind it is that each year on December 6th, Germans and people in many other countries in Europe remember and honor the life of Nikolaus, we call him Nikolaus, who lived in the 4th century. He lived in Myra, which is a small town in the now Anatolia region of Turkey. And based on the legend about St. Nicholas, he came from a very rich family, and when his parents died, he inherited a fortune. But instead of using all the money for himself, he decided to help the less fortunate. And up to this day, Nikolaus is remembered for his kindness and generosity and love for children. So what we do in honor of Nikolaus and many other countries throughout the world, we provide children with little gift bags in December on St. Nicholas Day, which is December the 6th. So the tradition is that children have to polish their boots the night before the 6th of December and leave them at the front step of their house, hoping that Nikolaus would come and fill their boots with little. Usually the tradition is that children would find a piece of fruit in their boot. It's usually an apple or a piece of orange, some chocolate, and sometimes a little coin.
And you write in that book that whenever you think of apples, you think of your grandma.
Mm-hmm. I sure do. I think of my German grandma, Eamon, my dad's mom. And growing up on the farm, we had apple trees of various different kinds of apples, crab apples and larger yellow apples, pie apples, and plums as well. But when I think of gardening, I think of my grandma, and I think of the apples that she used in cooking. It's just one of those flavors that I think it must have been an early flavor in my mouth as a toddler, and I associate it with my grandma. Applesauce cookies, apple kuchen, and that sort of thing, and even just eating sour apples. I'm still such a sourpuss for the apples from the farm. So I think, that's the association. My earliest association with my grandma is garden and apples, cooking with apples.
You grew up where in Germany?
I grew up in Halle an der Saale, which is a fairly big city in the former center of Germany, about 100 kilometers south of Berlin.
Yes.
And my father was a puppeteer. Mm-hmm. He had hand puppets then.
So he was probably your first major artistic influence.
Well, I grew up among puppets. Right. And, when the newspaper reporters came and made an interview of him, they always, of course, included the little daughter of them. I'm an only child. So it was so cute, a little child between all the puppets.
Yeah.
So I grew up with them.
Now, this particular glockenspiel that now sits in Regina, do you know when that was built and where?
Yes, I do, actually. The Regina Glockenspiel was, if I give you a little bit of history on that, was first investigated back in 1984, and several members of the Regina community, German community here, thought they might partner with the multicultural group in Regina here, the Multicultural Society, and they approached each other, or German Society approached them, and they were on board with a Glockenspiel being put in Regina, and the actual paperwork started, I believe, in 1984. It was a firm in Germany about cost and availability and that sort of thing. This would have been to construct, and I'm not sure if the design came from Germany, but I imagine it would have. It would have been with the manufacturer in Germany, and the idea was to get costs in place because it was quite substantial. Like, I think there's 23 bells involved in Regina Glockenspiel, so it would take quite a bit of work and ingenuity, and of course, structure-wise, to maintain that kind of those type of bells and their weight. So in 1984 it started, and in 1985 it kind of came to fruition with everybody in Regina being on board to bring this Glockenspiel over to Regina and install it in Victoria Park, which is downtown Regina.
Yeah, so Heinz was a fascinating person in the 20s and 30s. I mean, the 30s really. He was a young adult. He was beginning his musical career. He was composing quite a lot. There was quite a lot of output, and then he was silenced. So the silencing of Heinz Moon was part of what happened in those early days of World War II, pre-World War II, because his music was heavily influenced by the French and American jazz movements. So all of a sudden you had these sounds in Heinz's music that were just a little bit different than listening to it. It's like, well, that's not full on American jazz, but it had the chordal colors and the melodic manipulations that allowed for it to feel enough like the jazz movement of the United States and even the jazz movement of Paris. And so because it was so outside influenced, it was stopped. And so really Heinz composed right up until the early 40s and then didn't compose anymore. But he was smart because he turned that into a lifelong career as an editor. When Johannes brought us this opportunity, and I remember Eric and I found ourselves at their house looking through these manuscripts on their countertop. The name kept sticking out, and then it dawned on us that actually Heinz Mohn was one of the seminal editors of Mozart's music.
So there is indeed a German presence in the music world, and certainly within the orchestra here in Saskatchewan. It's alive and well, past and present.
Yes, yeah, and the music, the output of the German canon is just so incredible, and not just in terms of the big names, but there's been such an interesting growth of representation of music on stages, and it's exciting to see that we can pair brand new music alongside music that Germans first heard listening to Beethoven for a first time, being moved listening to Mozart in the salons, and it's a cool time to be alive because we have the benefit of all of that incredible music and the benefit of all of this incredible new music, both complementary, both vastly different and vastly the same, and alive and well today.